There's a dangerous myth that lives in the minds of many, the belief that risk takers are fearless, that they're somehow immune to anxiety, worry, or uncertainty. People look at those who make bold moves and think, they must have something I don't. And they're right. But it's not fearlessness. It's not a superpower. It's not magic. What separates risk takers from the rest is their relationship with fear. Risk takers don't eliminate fear, they learn to walk with it. Fear is natural. It's human. It's wired into our biology for survival. That gut-clenching feeling before a big decision, that's not a flaw. That's ancient wiring. Your body thinks you're about to be eaten by a lion when you're really just about to speak in a meeting, pitch your business, or apply for a new job. The mistake most people make is thinking that fear is a stop sign. Risk takers understand it's just a signal. Reminder that what you're about to do matters. The truth is, the presence of fear usually means you're on the right path. Because if your dreams don't scare you even a little bit, they're not big enough. Real risk takers don't wait for the fear to go away before they move. They move despite it. They've trained themselves to act in the middle of the storm. When the winds of doubt are howling, when the future is cloudy, and when the stakes feel impossibly high. Think of every major breakthrough in history. Whether in science, business, art, or social change, it wasn't made by someone lounging in comfort. It was made by someone staring fear in the face and deciding to push forward anyway. Every best-selling author once stared at a blank page wondering if they had anything worthwhile to say. Every entrepreneur once worried their product would fail. Every activist once feared their voice would be ignored. Fear didn't stop them. Why? Because they knew that fear is just a signpost pointing toward growth. Fear is not the enemy. It's a compass. Now, people will tell you to be brave. And you might think bravery means the absence of fear. But that's not bravery. That's ignorance. True courage is doing what needs to be done even when your knees are shaking. Risk takers don't have less fear, they just refuse to let it drive the car. They know fear can ride in the back seat, but it doesn't get to touch the wheel. Taking action while afraid doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful. Because fear sharpens your senses. It heightens your awareness. It keeps you alert. But too many people mistake that alertness for a warning. They think, if I feel this anxious, maybe it's a sign I shouldn't do it. No, maybe it's a sign you must do it. Because the real danger isn't in trying and failing. It's in never trying at all. The graveyard is full of people who played it safe. People who had dreams, ideas, potential, but never moved because the fear was louder than their vision. They were waiting for the fear to disappear. But fear never goes away. You just get better at moving through it. Like a muscle, your tolerance for uncertainty grows with repetition. The first time is terrifying. The 10th time is uncomfortable. The 100th time, it becomes your edge. Risk takers know they're not in a battle against fear. They're in partnership with it. They listen, they acknowledge, but they do not obey. That's the difference. That's the shift. They don't need the full path to be lit before they take the first step. They trust themselves to figure it out along the way. That trust is built by acting in spite of fear, again and again, until fear becomes a familiar companion, not a jailer. This doesn't mean every risk ends in reward. It doesn't mean you won't fall. You will. But risk takers accept that as part of the process. They understand that failing in motion is better than standing still in safety. Because in that failure, there's growth. In that stumble, there's strength. Every fall teaches something that staying seated never could. Most people live life trying to avoid discomfort. Risk takers chase it. And not because they enjoy fear, but because they understand it's the price of progress. They know that anything meaningful, any great achievement, any bold transformation will come with a cost. And fear is part of that cost. But it's never the whole story. Risk takers feel the same fear you do. They have the same doubts, the same what ifs, the same late night anxiety. But they refuse to let that fear write their future. They step forward anyway, knowing full well the risks, the stakes, the possibility of failure, but also knowing one more thing, that nothing changes unless you're willing to move while you're still afraid. There's a silent trap that millions of people walk into every single day, and most don't even realize it. It's disguised as peace, but it slowly robs you of purpose. It feels like safety, but it quietly drains your potential. It looks like stability, but it costs you everything. That trap is the comfort zone. And while it's marketed as the place where things are calm, manageable, and secure, the truth is that the comfort zone is a prison dressed up like a paradise. People think comfort is the goal. Get a stable job, find a routine, stick to what you know, avoid too much risk, and everything will be fine. But fine is where dreams go to die. Fine is where your soul starts whispering that there's more, but you ignore it because more feels uncomfortable. That's the trick of the comfort zone. It's not painful enough to make you run, but it's numbing enough to keep you stuck. The comfort zone is seductive. It's predictable. You know what each day will look like. You know what conversations you'll have, what steps you'll take, and what's expected of you. There are no surprises, but there's also no expansion. Nothing new grows in the soil of predictability. And while everything might feel okay, deep down, most people know they're not living anywhere close to what they're capable of. That's the thing about growth. It doesn't visit comfort. It doesn't show up in your daily routine. It lives in discomfort, in challenge, in resistance. The moment you feel like you're stretching, the moment you're unsure, nervous, even scared, that's the moment you're actually growing. That's when your edges are expanding. That's when something new is being built. But if you stay in the same place, doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, talking to the same people, you stay the same person. Growth requires discomfort because it's a process of becoming something you've never been. It means letting go of what's familiar. It means stepping into uncertainty with nothing but belief. It means waking up with the understanding that what got you here won't get you there. And that kind of transformation doesn't happen when you're wrapped in a warm blanket of ease. You see, the comfort zone is a master of illusion. It tells you, stay here and you won't get hurt. But what it doesn't tell you is that staying there will shrink your vision, limit your experiences, and dull your hunger. The longer you sit in comfort, the harder it becomes to leave. Muscles atrophy, dreams fade, time passes, and one day you wake up realizing that your life hasn't been lived. It's just been managed. Risk takers understand this truth. They don't run from discomfort. They seek it. They don't mistake safety for success. They lean into the places that feel unfamiliar because they know that's where growth begins. They understand that the most dangerous thing isn't failing. It's staying still. Every time they step out of the comfort zone, they stretch their capacity. And every time they return bigger, better, bolder. Discomfort is the birthplace of reinvention. Every breakthrough, personal, professional, emotional, happens right after that moment when you think, I don't know if I can do this. That's the signal. That's the edge. And when you cross it, you don't just change your life. You change yourself. But here's the trap the world rewards comfort. It tells you to play it safe, not make too much noise. Stay in your lane. Get the job, keep the benefits, don't ruffle feathers. And many do exactly that. They follow the script, they meet expectations, they avoid disruption. And years go by, and the life they've built looks perfect on paper, but feels empty in their chest, because we weren't built for comfort. We were built for purpose. And purpose isn't found in passivity. It's discovered in pursuit. You don't find out who you are by sitting still. You find out by moving through fear, doubt, challenge, and change. That's how character is built. That's how confidence is earned. Not from knowing everything, but from doing things you once thought you couldn't. And when you choose discomfort deliberately, when you decide to step into uncertainty, everything changes. You start to realize that discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the invitation. It's life saying, let's see what you're really made of. And with every step you take outside that zone of ease, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you ever imagined. The comfort zone will always be there, waiting for you to return. But once you've tasted growth, once you've seen what's possible beyond the walls of the familiar, you'll never be content settling for small. You'll crave the discomfort because you'll recognize it as the signpost that you're heading somewhere that matters. Failure, it's the word most people are taught to avoid from the moment they can walk and talk. It's framed as something final, something shameful, something that proves you're not good enough. In school, failure is punished. In life, it's judged. In society, it's hidden behind filters, edits, and perfect highlight reels. But here's the unfiltered truth: failure is not the end. It is the beginning. It is not a wall. It is a stepping stone. Risk takers know this better than anyone, and that's why they embrace failure while others run from it. Most people treat failure like it's a destination, like once you arrive there, it's over. Like there's no coming back. That mindset alone keeps countless dreams locked away and untried. People would rather play it safe than face the embarrassment, the judgment, or the sting of falling short. But that's the real failure. Not trying, not giving yourself the chance to fall, and therefore never giving yourself the chance to fly. What people don't realize is that failure is not a stop sign. It's a speed bump. It slows you down to teach you something before you keep going. Every person who's ever done something great has a trail of failures behind them. Not just one or two, but many. Rejections, bankruptcies, breakdowns, humiliations. What makes them great isn't that they avoided failure, but that they used it. They stood on it. They built on it. Because every time you fail, you gather data. You learn what works, what doesn't, what needs to change, and what needs to grow. Failure gives feedback, and that feedback becomes fuel. But that's only true if you're willing to shift your mindset. If you see failure as personal, it becomes paralyzing. If you see it as a lesson, it becomes powerful. The reason so many people give up after failing is not because they lack potential, but because they've been conditioned to take it personally. They hear no and believe they are the problem. They get knocked down and decide it means they're not worthy. Risk takers don't do that. They know failure doesn't define them. It refines them. It shapes them. It reveals the gaps so they can close them. There's also a lie that floats around that says successful people just had everything go right. That they got lucky, that the stars aligned, that they had some special access or advantage. What's almost always left out of the story is the part where they failed more than anyone else. Because most people only see the highlight, the win, the breakthrough. They don't see the sleepless nights, the bankrupt launches, the painful rejections, the tears behind the scenes. Every one of those failures is a brick in the foundation of success. Remove them and the whole thing collapses. There's a reason why risk takers move differently in the face of failure. They don't just tolerate it, they expect it. They know that the bigger the dream, the more room there is for things to go wrong. But they also know that you can't discover how strong you are until you're tested. You can't know what you're capable of until you've had to rebuild something that broke. They don't avoid hard landings. They prepare to bounce back higher after they hit the ground. And when you think about it, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success. It's a necessary chapter. You can't master anything you're not willing to be bad at first. You can't grow in comfort. And you can't discover excellence if you quit after the first setback. People want growth, but they fear pain. They want the prize without the process. Risk takers embrace the pain because they understand that pain is proof of progress. Every failure holds a choice. You can use it as a reason to stop or a reason to start stronger. You can let it break your spirit or build your resilience. That choice is where transformation happens. Most people don't fail because of the failure. They fail because they decide it means they're finished. But what if it meant you were just getting started? What if every no was really not yet? What if every door that closed was redirecting you to the right one? Risk takers live by that philosophy. They know that failure doesn't close doors. It opens new ones. It forces creativity. It sharpens focus. It reveals character. It burns away ego and replaces it with humility and hunger. It's one of the few experiences that exposes your real desire. Because if you can keep moving after failing, then you're serious. Then you're ready. Then you're not just interested in success. You're committed to it. The irony is that the people who avoid failure at all costs often end up stuck. Not because they're incapable, but because they're afraid to fall. And yet, the ones who embrace falling eventually learn how to fly. Not because they didn't hit the ground, but because they refuse to stay there. When people think of transformation, they often imagine a single dramatic moment, a flash of inspiration, a sudden opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime breakthrough. They picture the overnight success, the viral moment, the big break that changes everything. But what they rarely see, what they almost never give credit to, are the small, bold decisions made in silence long before anyone is watching. Because the truth is, it's not the big moments that define your future. It's the small ones that no one notices. The ones that seem ordinary but carry extraordinary weight. Risk takers know that success doesn't show up all at once. It builds quietly and powerfully on the back of daily, intentional choices. Every bold life begins with one bold move. Not always grand. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's waking up an hour earlier to work on something that matters. Sometimes it's choosing to speak when your instinct is to stay silent. Sometimes it's saying no when everything in you wants to say yes, to stay liked, accepted, or comfortable. These decisions might not look like much on the outside, but they shape the inside. They create the foundation for strength, resilience, and forward motion. The compound effect of bold action is what transforms people from average to exceptional. It's what separates those who only dream from those who actually do. Because while others wait for the perfect moment, risk takers take the moment they have and make it perfect. They understand that every courageous choice, no matter how small, starts a ripple effect. Each time you choose discomfort over ease, growth over stagnation, purpose over popularity, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And those votes add up. You don't have to change your whole life in one leap. That's the mistake many people make. They get overwhelmed by the scale of their dreams and end up paralyzed, stuck in analysis, never moving because they think they have to do everything at once. Risk takers don't fall into that trap. They break things down. They focus on the next bold step, not the whole staircase. That shift in mindset is everything. Because when you make a small, brave decision today, it becomes easier to make a bigger one tomorrow. A courage compounds just like interest. The more you practice it, the more you have, the stronger it gets. You don't wake up fearless. You build that mindset brick by brick. And each brick is a moment when you could back down but didn't. When you could have played it safe but chose to lean in. When you had every reason to retreat but chose to rise. Over time, those decisions stack. They become habits, and habits become identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who wants change and start seeing yourself as someone who creates it. It's easy to look at someone's success and assume it was one massive leap. But if you follow the story back, it's always a series of consistent, quiet choices made when no one else was watching. It's choosing to show up when it was easier to stay home. Choosing to work on the plan when no applause was guaranteed. Choosing to believe in your value when the results weren't there yet. These are the bold decisions that lay the groundwork for explosive change. Even the biggest opportunities in life rarely appear as big at first. They often look like inconvenience, effort, or even risk. And if you're not trained to see through that lens, you'll miss them. Risk takers have a different vision. They don't just see what something is, they see what it could become. That conversation could turn into a partnership. That idea could grow into a business. That skill could unlock a new chapter. But only if you act, only if you decide. Because boldness isn't just an emotion. It's a behavior. And the more you practice it, the more doors it opens. The world constantly rewards boldness, but it rarely announces that reward in advance. You won't get a notification saying, this is the moment that will change everything. You'll just get a whisper, a nudge, a decision point. And if you're waiting for certainty, for the guarantee, for the safety net, you'll wait forever. The people who create momentum in their lives are the ones who say yes to the little challenges that stretch them. They say yes to learning when others choose avoiding. They say yes to leading when they still feel like a beginner. They say yes to moving forward, even when the destination isn't fully clear. Over time, these small acts of boldness reshape the course of a life. They create a rhythm, a direction, a sense of inner alignment that becomes magnetic. That's when things begin to shift. That's when the world starts to respond. Not because one single choice did everything, but because many small ones built something unshakable, something rooted in intention, in courage, in discipline. Those small decisions, stacked on top of each other, create the momentum that makes massive breakthroughs possible. There is a powerful illusion that time will always be on your side. That you can start later, try later, speak later, lead later. That eventually the right moment will show up, glowing and obvious, giving you the perfect conditions to finally pursue what matters. But that moment rarely comes. And while you're waiting for it, time moves quietly but relentlessly forward. The truth is, the people who leave a mark, the ones remembered long after they're gone, are never the ones who waited. Legacy doesn't belong to the cautious or the comfortable. It belongs to the ones who dare. To those who step forward, not because it's safe or easy, because they refuse to sit still while life passes them by. Legacy is not built in convenience. It's carved out of courage. Every person who changed history, who started a movement, who created something timeless, began with nothing more than a decision to try. They didn't wait for certainty, permission, or applause. They didn't ask if they were ready. They dared. And in doing so, they activated something far bigger than themselves. They stepped into purpose, and with every step they took, they pulled the future closer. There's a lie that ordinary people can't build extraordinary legacies. That only the special, the gifted, The connected can do something great. But the truth is, it's not talent that defines legacy. It's tenacity. It's not perfection. It's persistence. It's not brilliance. It's boldness. Every single day, you have a choice to be one of the people who talks about what they could do, or one of the people who actually does it. The difference is daring. Daring to show up. Daring to speak. Daring to act, even when your voice trembles and your vision is blurry. Most people don't miss out because they lack dreams. They miss out because they overthink them. They spend years analyzing, comparing, doubting, preparing. And in the process, the moment passes. Risk takers live by a different rhythm. They don't wait until the road is paved. They build the road as they walk. They understand that action precedes clarity, that momentum breeds insight, that if you want your life to mean something beyond survival, you have to do more than exist. You have to engage. The people we remember are the ones who left something behind, a message, a movement, a model for others to follow. But that impact didn't start at the end. It started in obscurity. It started in moments of loneliness, fear, and uncertainty. It started with one decision that no one applauded, one action that no one noticed, one risk that no one understood. And over time, those decisions became a pattern. That pattern became a path. That path became a legacy. Legacy isn't reserved for those with platforms or followers. It's available to anyone who's willing to live intentionally, to live with a sense of urgency, of purpose, of willingness to disrupt the norm. You don't build a legacy by copying someone else. You build it by being brave enough to do what others aren't, to speak what others won't, to stand where others retreat. That's the power of daring, not just in what it creates, but in what it inspires. Because legacy isn't just what you achieve. It's what you awaken in others by the way you choose to live. To dare means to defy the rules of comfort. It means turning down the volume of the world so you can hear the sound of your own voice. It means choosing meaning over mediocrity, truth over popularity, action over approval. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. That's how legacy multiplies. Not through force, but through example. Not by shooting, but by shining. But none of that happens if you wait. Waiting is the enemy of impact. Waiting for the perfect timing, the ideal conditions, the absolute confidence. Those things rarely come in advance. They show up in motion, not in stillness. You don't become bold by sitting still. You become bold by taking the first step without all the answers. And that step doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be honest, true to who you are, aligned with what you believe, committed to something bigger than your fear. The irony is that the people who wait often think they're playing it safe. But the longer you wait, the riskier it becomes. Because waiting steals time, waiting shrinks dreams, waiting erodes confidence. Daring, on the other hand, expands everything. It opens up new relationships, new possibilities, new levels of resilience and clarity. It builds a life that's not just measured in accomplishments, but in authenticity, in alignment, in depth. You don't have to know how your story ends to start writing it. You don't have to be certain it will work out to decide it matters. You just have to care enough to try. Because those who dare are the ones who live fully, love deeply, fall often, rise repeatedly, and leave something behind that matters. Not just to themselves, but to the world around them. The truth about risk takers isn't found in the absence of fear, the avoidance of failure, or the pursuit of comfort. It's found in their unwavering decision to move anyway, to act boldly in small moments, to embrace discomfort as a teacher, to rise from failure as fuel, and to make choices that shape not just success, but identity. Risk takers don't wait for the world to give them permission. They write their own permission slips. They don't ask if they're ready. They trust that action will make them ready. They don't settle for surviving. They commit to living with intention, with courage, and with clarity. Every risk taken in faith, every step forward in fear, every uncomfortable leap builds a life of meaning. And in the end, it's not the perfect plans or the careful calculations that define you. It's the willingness to dare to do and to defy the limits that others accept. Because the real truth is this: the world doesn't remember those who stayed in line. It remembers those who stepped out, stood up, and shaped their own path. Legacy is not about what you had. It's about what you did with what you had. And that legacy belongs to those who take the risk,